Let's solve this radical equation. So when I'm looking at it, I have the square root of both sides of the equation. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, the easiest way to go about doing this is to rewrite this radical equation as rational exponents. Remember that 3x plus 1 is just one number. Same thing with x minus 5. That is just one number. So the square root of 3x plus 1 is the same as 3x plus 1 all to the 1/2 power. Same thing with x minus 5. That's all to the 1/2 power. So I want to get this 1/2 power out of here. I want it to equal 1. So I know 1/2 times 2, or 2 over 1, is going to give me 1. That means that I'm going to take this exponent, multiply it by 2, and this exponent, and multiply it by 2, because what I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other. So that leaves me with 3x plus 1 equals x minus 5. So now I just need to get x like I do in Algebra 1. I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So that gives me 2x plus 1 equals negative 5. And I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, which gives me 2x is equal to negative 6. And divide both sides by 2, which gives me x is equal to negative 3. So now I need to check to see if in fact negative 3 is a solution. So I'm going to put that negative 3 back into my original problem in place of the x. I have to do it to both sides. Remember, when I check, I cannot cross that equal sign. So 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Negative 3 and negative 5 gives me negative 8. So this gives me the square root of negative 8 equals the square root of negative 8. Now, initially this looks like, yes, it's a solution, but actually it's not. This is a little tricky because underneath our square root we have a negative. And because of that negative, I cannot get an actual real number solution. So this is extraneous. Because it is a non-real answer. And I'm looking for real answers in the land of real numbers. If I were to try to examine this square root of negative 8, this is the same thing as the square root of negative 1 times 4 times 2, which gives me 2 square root of negative 1 times 2. This is my problem right here, this negative 1. And mathematicians have said, okay, we're going to call the square root of negative 1 an imaginary number I. And we're going to be looking at this in later lessons. So this comes out as 2i square root of 2. And that's in fact what the square root of negative 8 is. Imaginary numbers are actual numbers with a very unfortunate name. They are used in science, but for whatever reason we call them imaginary.